Welcome back to the channel. Revs from Team Tien Beale here, coming to you with another rogue strategy video for your Zenkai Cups and beyond. Today we're going to be covering the colour yellow, and I got something spicy for you, as I promised last time. We're going to be looking at set 11 Garlic Jr. as my rogue pick moving forward in the format. Why Garlic Jr.? Garlic Jr. has recently had some really cool buffs to the archetype. It's always done a really strong thing, but it's just really missed some of those consistency pieces. And as we've gone through Zenkai, we've actually picked up a few of those consistency pieces. And now the deck does some really cool things really early on in the game that I don't think a lot of yellow decks can do. So I'm going to break down the deck for you. And we're going to go through a couple of different ways the deck operates, and again a couple more options as well. If you're liking the content, please just continue to like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. Really appreciate everyone's support so far on this series. So without further ado, let's just go into it. So the leader itself is really basic. It's just got Overlord, which is place a servant to the bottom of the deck, draw a card. If you're not sure with that one, on the front side it just attacks and draws a card. And then the Awaken condition is a 3-cost Unison in play, so you can always Awaken turn 3 if you need to, or of course the 4 or less life. On the Awaken side, you retain the fact that you can Overlord once per turn, and the auto allows you to play a Demon Clan from your hand on your opponent's attack, and play it in rest mode on your board, and you also draw a card on attack. So going straight into the deck, and I'm going to explain kind of as I go along some very key parts of the deck that make it operate, as well as kind of crucial combos as well. Your first thing here we want to look at is the Macchio Star and the Gashu of the Demonic Elite form. The Gashu is real simple. You discard the card, you search Macchio Star. But Macchio Star is a real big cornerstone of the deck, because so many of the things that we play in the deck rely on you having Macchio Star on the board, and it also allows us to maintain board presence, which a deck that relies on using Servant desperately needs. So yeah, Macchio Star lets you search the top 5, so you get that added consistency, and also allows you to free play a Demon Clan 2 cost or less yellow from your hand with its skills negated as well. So you keep that board presence, you're always going to have bodies that you can overlord off the board, and all of your servants are 20k in the deck basically as well, so you've constantly got pressure. Gashu is really good as well, purely for the fact that if you really need to in a niche scenario, you can pay a yellow and play him for 1 cost 15k after you've used an overlord. But also being able to discard it and get multiple copies of Macchio Star to charge for your powerful your stuff like Robotic Riposte is really crucial here. So for your servant package, we are playing 4 Demonic Transformation Roshi, 4 Demonic Vassal, and 3 Chi-Chi. The 2 Roshis are really crucial in the deck. The first Roshi here, the Demonic Transformation, is purely a draw 1 whenever it's played on an auto. Obviously, Macchio negates that seal, but we do have cards that play that card for free with its skill intact, so you get to draw an extra card. Demonic Vassal is one of the latest cards, in fact, the latest card, alongside one other as well, for the deck. Whenever you have Macchio Star in play, you can place the bottom card. You can bottom deck 1 card from your hand, search the top 5, add any Demon Clan you see there, yellow Demon Clan to your hand, and then obviously his servant as well. And the Chi-Chi as well doesn't net you a card like the 2 Roshis do, but does allow you to rest a Unison or battle card on its play as well. So there are a couple of things there, like the Chi-Chi is really crucial to use with that leader effect that we discussed at the beginning, because the auto will let you free play it in your opponent's turn, and then you can rest a Unison. It can really break up some really important plays for your opponent, especially because it can interact with Unisons, like resting a Unison in your opponent's turn, for example, is a really good usage of the card. These are the main servant guys we're going to want to be cycling, and it's really important. Obviously, servant gives them that extra 10k, so you've got 20k and 19k on these servants, which means the deck can put on a surprising amount of pressure, and we'll see how it does that here with our main core package of the deck. So we got this card from Fighter's Ambition, this Garlic Jr. Verner's Threat, and very simply, if you have a Macchio Star in play, you play it for 1 yellow. It's another 20k swing, but crucially, it lets us very easily evolve into Garlic Jr. Overlord of the Dead Zone. So this is indestructible, critical, and 30k, and then lets you, as an activate main, play any Demon Clan you find on the bottom of your deck, 2 cost or less, for free. And it also has another proc of Overlord as well, so between this and your leader, you're going to get 2 lots of Overlord. Now, obviously, I've just been kind of explaining these individual effects as we go at the moment, but you start to see this card kind of ties a lot of this together. So being able to free play a Demonic Transformation Roshi, being able to bottom deck it with Overlord to draw a card, You use your 5-drop to replay it again, so you swing for 20k, you swing another 20k, a 30k critical, you get to bottom deck it again with the second use of Overlord to draw a card, so you're maintaining loads of card advantage. All the time you're constantly picking up cards using the Roshi's effects because they both net free advantage whenever they're played, so playing them multiple times in a turn is going to keep on netting advantage. One of the key things about the 2-drop Roshi is its auto will activate only once per turn on a draw, but you're still going to be getting those Overlord draws. You know, an ideal turn is you can sit there and with the leader swing as well, you basically get 4 extra cards to play with, as well as multiple 20k swings. One of the things that really separates this deck, I said it at the beginning, is that you can be super aggressive with it as well, which not a lot of yellow decks really allow. A lot of them, especially in these formats with red and blue, like to kind of sit back and slowly whittle away, work away into an opportunity where like the SCR, Mirror, Chomper and Oolong is like a combination they use to try and close out a very grindy game. But you'll often find, as weird as it sounds, like you're playing Garlic Jr., you're actually in the front seat for a lot of these games. You're always on the front foot, you're always being able to apply loads of pressure. And naturally, one of the weaknesses with the deck was that you weren't able to find your pieces very successfully. Your 3-drop you were using instead of this, I'll discuss it a bit later on, as one of those options was a bit more of a clunky card to play. You didn't have the Demonic Vassal as well to start searching out all these different combo pieces. You know, you could technically play 2 Roshis by the time you get to turn 2 just to make sure you see this combo. So all these things together actually make the deck way more consistent and way more powerful when it comes to those early, mid, and then late game as well as you go through the turns. It gives you like a real edge that I don't think a lot of other yellow decks really get because they're way more defensive. The next card I'm also going to move on to here is your Unison of choice. So there are a couple of options here. Again, I'm going to go for a couple of options towards the end, but SS Trunks Alter in the future, because we really want to lean into that kind of aggressive style that the deck offers us, and not a lot of opponents are going to expect you to start be swinging at their face like 4 or 5 times when you're playing Garlic Jr. This card on turn 3 not only fulfills our Awaken condition, but also gives you 2 swings, and also gives you a way of playing around blocking negates as well. One of the best ways that a lot of decks generically deal with aggro is through those blocking negates, and this deck does so much to counter that. You know, between the Chi-Chi and the Trunks we've already got there, multiple ways of resting down multiple battle cards, blockers, including those token negates, to really push through. And the Trunks as well gives you a really good play around for aggro matchups. So you play against red, for instance, being able to swing twice and then also -3 straight away, destroy that board after Awakening with that Unison as well. Like, it's not necessary to keep the card around. You can do loads of damage. You put yourself back on the forefront, especially if you have in those red matchups. You kind of do have to play a little bit more defensively, whereas a lot more of the other matchups you're on the front foot. So SS Trunks really helps us, like kind of fits in much better with the ideology of what the deck wants to be doing over the Gohan Unison, for example, which is a bit more of a steady yellow card. It's like a draw every turn, a very safe Unison to play. This is more dynamic and it's a bit more explosive and helps us with the game plan. Now, how does yellow win the game? Mirror, Chomper, Cooler, Oolong. Although we're talking about Rogue here, we're still going to be playing these cards in this deck. These actually only just feed in more to our aggressive play style. Double Mirror means that you can do it back to back. It's not just a card you want to just save for your kill turn and that's it. This card can be used to clear threats because you're playing the 2 copies of it. It loads up the warp for the second one to be even bigger. And it just allows you to like pile in the pressure, because when you kind of get to turn 3 and turn 4 with this deck, you'll see there's a bit of gameplay of the deck on the channel already from locals. You get to sort of like turn 3, turn 4, and there's a lot of different paths you can go down with your energy usage, because your 5-drop is just free playing everything, and you're getting loads of like just free 20k pressure. So Chomper, Cooler, and Mirror, you end up having plenty of energy forward turn sort of 3, 4 onwards that you can utilize these cards really effectively. Double Chompering is fantastic in this deck because this guy over here, our 5-drop, is a 30k critical. And using 1 energy to just Chomper it and turn it into a 40k crit piles on pressure if they let that crit swing through. The amount of times, obviously, the 5-drop gets negated is pretty big, but being able to Chomper on top of it multiple times and really force through that aggressive playstyle without even letting your opponent see those cards as well, for a deck like this is absolutely phenomenal. And then that gives you a free Z charge and feeds into those Oolong plays we'll get into in a bit as well. So these cards are really fantastic, really flesh out the deck, and it's an obvious include for yellow, right? But you know, people won't expect this so early on and so easy to pile in that pressure, especially when your cards are indestructible as well. They just can't really be interacted with unless you're playing against red to be minused off the board, or yellow can final flash them. And there's some very niche green and blue cards that deal with them, but very rarely when you're swinging with them. For riposte, yeah, we're playing yellow, we're playing for riposte. One of the handy things in this deck here is obviously you've got the Macchios, and the extra copies, as I said earlier, can be charged to turn on riposte. So because you only need 1 Macchio in play, so it doesn't feel bad drawing multiples of this, because it's just an easy free charge for your riposte as well. But yeah, helps us just maintain tempo because you put all this pressure on in the first couple of turns, and then you riposte there, clap back, and then you just go again with another turn of you can't clear my 5-drop. I'm going to play 2, 3 20Ks and just keep on swinging at you. 20Ks are actually really important nowadays just because so many of the new Zenkai leaders combo up by 5k. They have ways of comboing on top of their leader, so having the ability to go to like 20k and just still force an extra card after they've used those effects is still really important. Another thing that kind of feeds into this aggressive playstyle is this Basil Fatal Rampage as well. I tested it with a couple of different things, and again, I'm going to go over those in a second when we go into options. But the Basil just felt like a really efficient. It's 2 lots of 19k. Again, it's a really difficult number to like. It's going to force cards out of your opponent, and it stays at 19k in your opponent's turn as well. You're going to be forcing them to rest a lot of cards, so it's going to be live really early because they're going to want to play defensively against all this pressure you're putting on. And it's an additional body. It replaces itself when it's played. It's overall like the value you get from Basil is fantastic for what the deck wants to do, which is just be aggressive. With that riposte card there to back you up as well. And then I also take in a copy of Rose Goku Black Future on the line. This card does quite a few things. It was introduced for the set 16 Zamasu deck, but as a standalone yellow card, especially when we want to play aggressive, this card's fantastic. It's got an activate battle for 2 yellow, so if you have 2 or more blue or yellow battle cards in your battle area or combo, you get to play it from your warp or your hand, and then auto on play you can rest a non-leader card on your opponent's board. So being able to rest energy is really crucial when your opponent's leaving up that energy for crucial negates. You'll remember your mirror will warp your drop if you've comboed this off at any point as well, so it's easily played from the warp. You have multiple indestructible battle cards as well that can't really be like destroyed or leave the battle area. So having those 2 yellow battle cards on board is always pretty live. Your Macchio is free playing stuff as well. You end up with a really wide board playing the deck, and then the ability to rest energy on top of it and also interact with those blocker negates or anything like that. It's a non-leader card, so you can rest a Unison with it as well. Is really good. And then for 1 yellow, you can send it back to the warp to draw a card and KO a rested battle card as well, so it acts as a little bit of removal. This lot's a bit up for interpretation. You can choose to play something different here if you wanted to, if you had a preference. But for me, it was just like a cool little tech that you can put in to kind of help the deck get that really like aggressive approach to the game. Your extra cards of choice, obviously we're going to be playing the yellow good cards. I've been speaking so much about how good token negates are. You've got your Freezer Army reinforcements in there. Again, it just helps you survive, helps you awaken when you get to 5. Nothing really too much else to say about the cards. Vegeta's Final Flash, funnily enough, is a counter to the mirror match if you're going to play a Garlic Jr. mirror match, because you can turn off your indestructible and actually deal with the cards. But Final Flash is just so strong against anything that tries to aggress you. Like between Final Flash and Robotic Riposte, you leave 1 yellow energy up, and your opponent's going to be scratching their head for ages thinking, am I going to swing straight into a Riposte? Or if I try and go tall and like swing in with something, dump my hand on it, am I just going to end up getting Final Flash and I'm only going to take 1 life? The card's too good. And also it's another 15k combo, so you can play this into any of your big aggressive swings, get that extra value from the card. Power of the Super Saiyan's broken as well. Little really to say about that. Card's too good. You should probably all know what that does by now. And then we haven't gone over any super combos yet. So there's a really obvious picks for this one, but this is what we've gone with. So a lot of people are going to say use the Krillin super combo, the simple bottom deck 1, draw 2. It's even got Garlic Jr. on the card, so yeah, you've got to play it right. Not so much. I want to explain why, because it's going to have a little bit of a weird explanation, but hear me out. The Krillin super combo is great because you see more cards. For less life, that's when you're going to get your plus 10k for it as well. But you can actually find sometimes that bottom decking the card, and I found this when I was testing through with the deck, is that bottom decking that card can sometimes throw off your Overlord procs, and your like 5-drop trying to play something back from the bottom, especially if you've had to use that defensively to combo out of an attack, and you've had to place like kind of dead cards from your hand to the bottom so you can combo out of attacks. And then when you go to your next turn, you realise you don't have another way of playing a Servant card and overlording it away, and you've lost a proc on your 5-drop. So I actually went with the 3 copies of Zold over the Demonic Elite 4, purely because it's a searchable super combo as well, because this is a 2-cost Demon Clan. So your new Roshi can search this off the top 5, your Macchio Star can add this off the top 5 as well, and the amount of times I went from not whiffing with the Demonic Vassal because I had extra Demon Clan targets, and you're playing in a format where 8-drop Gogeta exists, and if you don't see your super combos, you just die to the card. It just worked out really well. So I really enjoyed the super combo for the deck for sure. I just don't play Krillin. I know it's like such an easy bait to play the card, but searching your super combos is too good. And speaking of super combos that are too good, Piccolo and Gohan Newfound Might kind of works its way into this Mirror, Chomper, Oolong, Cooler package group. If you're playing yellow and you draw this card, you normally go on to win that game. It's just a case of actually trying to draw that card to go and win the game. But the amount of stuff it does for the deck, you know, if I think I'm going to swing with this 30k crit, put a Chomper on top of it, and then combo this as well. They're all of a sudden taking a 70k double strike critical with the Piccolo Gohan coming into play, drawing a card and resting something, swinging, drawing a card and resting something. The amount of value the card does defensively and offensively, especially for an aggressive strategy like this, when you can do it so early on, you force your opponent to rest stuff when they're playing defensively to turn on that free combo power for the deck, for the card. Utterly phenomenal. Just there's no better SCR to play. Obviously, if you're on a budget, you can fit in a couple of different options, but yellow SCRs, it's got to be Piccolo Gohan at the moment for sure. I guess Pan is also another option if you're looking for, again, like another aggressive SCR that also acts defensively. But honestly, Piccolo Gohan, so good. So that is the main deck. We're at a tight 51 cards. Because of the amount of searching you do and because you want to hit these pieces consistently, I could see you going up to a fourth of this as well. Instead of the Goku Black if you wanted to as well, just to add that consistency. But you want to keep it as close to 50 as possible, making sure that you're constantly hitting off your top 5 searches with the TP, and you'll find all those bits that you need to close out the game. Zdec, these first 7 cards is what I actually played, but I've also included a couple of options as well, kind of on retrospect, that you could play into the deck as well. Oolong is too good. It is too good. It's really strong. Copying a mirror, swinging for another 80k, whatever, is so strong. And it plays perfectly into this aggressive play style. So definitely play 2, because again, you can just mirror Oolong twice. You can do it turn after turn. You've got to remember the Oolong's not unique, but you know, your opponent should be clearing out an Oolong if it hits the board, because that is an activate main skill, not on play. This Goku here, the Evolved Defender, is fantastic in those games where you can't win off the aggression. You do need to sit back a little bit. Obviously, Red being the primary example of that, but sometimes, depending on what your hand is, you might not be able to pull off certain combos quite early on. So you may have to start to change your game plan and play more defensively. And that is where Evolved Defender comes in. Locking down Leader, Unison, or a battle card in rest mode is absolutely snapped for the 3 energy that you play for it, with another deflect barrier as well, making the card super hard to clear off the board. And it creates this kind of tension for your opponent as well while it's in rest mode, that they have to kind of play a card into it and get anything rested as well. So they kind of got to swing with everything first, then play something to kind of play around it. It really forces different play lines, so it's another really phenomenal Z battle card. I played 2 with Gohan because I was side decking the Pan and the Flash of Brilliance Gohan. Otherwise, it's just a 15k dual attacker. It's fine in its own right, but it does have some much better applications with EX Evolve. But we'll go over that when we move into some sideboard options. And obviously this Vegeta as well. You know, at the end of the day, we're a set 11 leader. We do need to awaken. If you don't see your Unison and you're being stalled out, this takes you from 6 to 5, and then 5 to 4 as well for your Frieza's Army reinforcements gets you there as well. So, especially if you've also awakened as well and want to start using your super combos aggressively. A couple of other options as well. So you can actually play this this Gamma Z battle card. Because you can choose a villainous card and place it in the owner's drop. If so, then you get 10k power and double strike. Whether this actually activates on retrospect, because indestructible can't be removed from the board, I would have to double check that. But if so, then you've got kind of an option to get plus 10k and double strike. But also, just as the activate main here as well, I'm not a big fan of Magenta, but people play it. And this card is, you know, if you specifically have a problem with that matchup, every time your opponent activates Villainous, you draw a card and activate main for the card. Like, you can just hilariously shut down that matchup. But also if they use a counter skill as well, so if you are expecting like your opponent to leave a bunch of energy up and play defensively into, you can just use this activate main, so that you're constantly netting more advantage off them trying to use a bunch of counters to survive, and you just stay well ahead of the game. And this Frieza is a 1-cost, 1Z energy, 15k swing. Nothing more than that, maybe 1. But I do think there are better options than this, but you do see people playing it. And sometimes that 1 energy and 1Z energy can just kind of come in and win you the game. So it is an option for sure. But again, all of this is your preference, how you want to play it. So you can see we've got quite a few different options here. I'm going to very quickly go through some of them. A lot of them are way more flexible and should be in the side deck and your main deck. Others are more preference. Others are, I understand why people play them, but they're very average options in their slot, in my opinion. Release from Evil, you want this in the side deck for sure. Shuts down loads of matchups. I'm talking Gamma, I'm talking Gogeta, for example, SS4 Gogeta. There's loads of stuff this card now hits with loads more, and again, this is kind of the point of the series, right? With so much more Rogue coming up and out of the blue, Release from Evil hits so many more of these leaders. Supreme Kind of Time is a perfect example of something that got recent dash pack support and also suffers from the fact that you can turn off its effective hasn't already activated. A couple of those activate mains on the leader's side, like free playing the Unison and sticking your overarms to the board. So, you know, if people attack into this, then it gives you so much of an advantage against those decks. Flying Nimbus, you want to play against red, you kind of want to side something like this. Again, if you want to take the back seat in your play and you are a bit more of a defensive player, Nimbus you can main it, but mainly you want to kind of sideboard that card. Tyrannical Blow is your like out to, and there's an argument for this to be in the main because it gives you a out to a lot of like floodgates that stop your aggressive pushes. But a lot of the time people don't necessarily know what your deck is doing, so they don't really think to like floodgate you or start to do that. It's only when they get later on after they've kind of charged the floodgate after looking at Garlic Junior, they go, hang on a second, I may well have needed that. But yeah, still a phenomenal card. If you see yourself playing into a lot more decks which are going to be floodgating, then Tyrannical Blow in the main is a great shout. Otherwise, side deck the card. These two cards here, so you've got the Pan and you've got the Gohan as well. There's a case for them to be in the main deck for sure. I tried this Pan out. It's a little bit more inconsistent because you don't have a leader that combos from the drop, so a lot of like the Ape-Ku starter Goku plays this Pan because you can combo it from the drop very efficiently, so it's always going to be in your Z energy, but in this deck you have to draw into the card and then you have to combo it and then you have to play it using the Z battle card. So it's clunky, but the effect is really powerful because this again is like some free barrier removal to a rested card. And for 4 energy, being able to put on, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 swings with this going up to dual attack, double strike barrier with the Pan in play as well, is a really, really good way of closing the game out, especially with the amount of energy you have to play around with from turn 4 onwards. So totally see people playing those in the deck if you want to find space for it. There's an argument that you could play these over like the Basil and the Goku Black here, is what I'd recommend. But otherwise, side decking them's great. Unison of Fury, you want this for your red matchups again, it's a standard yellow out. Black Smoke Dragon does exist now, but a lot of the time you want to just use this on the right turn rather than being like slam it onto and start ticking it, because a lot of decks will just Smoke Dragon it, but it gives you a good out to the 8-drop Vegeta. Absolute Annihilation for anything that uses extra cards, blue being the prime example, but some green decks like King Cold and Green Broly really will suffer if you play this card. Divine Transformation is a blue counter. People hate it when they're like trying to just play like hard negate decks. Like I don't think it's as massive against blue as it used to be, and it's a very heavy cost, but totally see that. There's a couple of like Garlic Junior cards here. So one of the ones which is quite you see quite a lot in a few builds, if you're actually looking at Garlic Junior builds for whatever reason, other than this one. This is the main one. This Vinegar here, I can see the application for it. Basically, you look at the top 5 and play a Demon Clan with a 2 cost or less in rest mode from the top of your deck. It kind of is just a bit of a luck sack card though. Like if you're going to like look at the top 5, you don't find the exact Demon Clan that you want for that situation. You're much better actually finding the ones you want in your hand, and you actually have way more consistency with the Roshi now to find your pieces. So, when you hit the top 5 and find something and play it, and it's the perfect one like the Roshi, and you draw or search, then it feels good. But when you tap in energy to play this after Overlording and search the top 5 and see nothing there, and you wasted one of those energy you could be doing to do something like Basil, Mirror, Chomper, Oolong, etc., it feels pretty bad. The same goes for something like Tardo here, for example. It's got an interesting application of just keeping battle cards like locked down. They can't be switched to active mode during your opponent's turn, but again, it's limited because of the battle card thing, and realistically, I would rather use something more powerful and more sticky like this Goku Z battle card there. Piccolo Demonic Transformation is a searchable blue counterplay, basically. The interesting wording on this card is it's any card 4 cost or less is played with its skills negated. That includes Unison. So against blue, if they Unison on turn 4, this card will negate it, so they can't uptick, they can't untap the energy, so if they tapped out for it, it can be a really back-breaking play for the side deck, but importantly with this card, it does cost 2, but everything is tied to the counterplay effect as well, so if you free play this off the leader, you get nothing. You can still search it with the Roshi though, which is why it's an interesting pick, but if this just said that it was on an auto, there's a counterplay play this card auto, card would be phenomenal in the deck, but as it stands, it's a nice little side deck option. Your other 3-drop Garlics, you've got Commander of the Demon Clan here. This costs 3 to play. It's really bad. Other than this like line here where you don't take double or triple strike damage, the card is flat out awful. It feels really bad. There's so much more you can do for 3 energy. But as a very niche sideboard, if you're seeing a lot of aggressive decks double and triple striking you, one to look out for in the future as a very like niche answer to particular cards, maybe. But yeah, it ain't it really, I'm afraid. Another one of your servant cards that we don't play in the deck. So there is a Bulma, but that's really bad. That's just a terrible version of Roshi. And there's this Yamcha as well. The only thing it's got is blocker. So the first, second turn, free playing this off Macchio feels good because it gains blocker again back in your opponent's turn. It's a 20k block against a more aggressive. But the card doesn't net you any advantage, nor does it rest something importantly during your opponent's turn and break up the plays like Chi-Chi does. So realistically, this Yamcha is average at best for the deck. Spoke about this Gohan earlier as well. This Gohan is again, it's really good as a preference thing. Like again, if you want to play a slower game and draw a card, it gives you that barrier removal for certain matchups as well, and it gives you a bit more of a win con with this -3, especially if you're playing multiple Unisons with the build. But for me, I found more aggressive value in the Trunks. But yeah, I can totally see playing this Unison as well. Usual yellow good stuff as well comes in. Black Kamehameha, Forbidden Power again is like Nimbus. Death Blaster is a really interesting option now that God Sealing is gone, because this is actually one of the only counterplays in the game left that can kind of interact with a lot of things, especially if you play against like Cell, for instance, and they just 7 cost you and wipe your entire hand. Like, being able to have an answer to it is important if that's particularly prevalent in your meta. This is the actual theme Unison for the deck when it came out in set 11. It's really bad, quite honestly. There's going to be some very niche applications for it, but compared to the Gohan and the other option you've got in the Trunks that we play, it's particularly average. It doesn't feel great to play the card. It feels like it will just die instantly as well. Paying 3 for 15k really isn't it. Last couple of cards on here as well. Energy Field, negate the attack. If you have 4 or more yellow demon clans in play, your opponent can only attack once more that turn. And if you have 4 or more demon clans in play, you can activate it for free. This is one of those cards where it looks like it's phenomenal, and it looks like it's a really slept-on card. But only 2 of your guys will probably have Indestructible, unless you play the other, like one of the other 3-cost Garlic Juniors with Unique. And keeping those 4 demon clans on board is just impossible, especially when you're playing against some of the better decks in the room. They will find ways to clear off your board each turn, and a lot of the time, you get very lucky if you manage to keep 4 demon clans on the board, activate this for free, and shut down their turn. It very rarely comes up. It ends up getting charged a lot of the time. I did play with the card for a little bit, so it's one of those things that kind of baits you into thinking it's a really strong card, and then when you actually play it in practice, you kind of think, this ain't it, Chief. So my thoughts on that one, but I have seen some people have some success with it, so I understand why it would be in the deck. This is also another, like, again, kind of on the same remit as Death Blaster. This is another counterplay option, again, now that God Sealing is banned. As your SCR, I know I said earlier, maybe Pan or just Piccolo Gohan. Honestly, Piccolo Gohan is so much better, but if you're having particular problems with this new slew of, like, big boss monsters that don't have Deflect, then this is a good card as well for that. And Steadfast Assistance as well. Used to be a really strong card, but I think it's just kind of lags behind a little bit now. One of the little bits here that I'd point out is that energy cost gets reduced for each yellow extra card in battle area, energy area, and drop area. So Macchio Star will actually reduce the cost for this in play, unlike with Riposte. So there are your options. I hope you all enjoyed the deck profile. One thing I do need to note quickly about this main deck is it should have a Bergamo in here as well. I think I missed that off the list here. That's a kind of important yellow card, so apologies. But if you enjoyed the profile and everything, please do let us know down in the comments and everything. Let me know if there's anything that you would change about it, anything you would fiddle around with the deck and put in differently. But honestly, this has been an absolute blast to play. It's so much fun, and you don't realise just how consistent the deck now is. And without, like, blue in particular having a lot of good outs to Indestructible, like, you just constantly gain advantage, you constantly put pressure on, and it's really fun just being aggressive with this deck. And then also having all those important yellow tools to fall back on if you want to play a defensive game. It really feels like it's got everything. It's just making sure you get set up. There is gameplay of this on the channel already. We will link it down in the description below as well for you, but you can happily go back through the channel and find it. And that is everything from me. Thank you so much again, guys, and we will catch you at the next one. I am undecided whether I'm going to go for black or red next as your colour for the next Rogue Gallery one. So do please let me know down in the comments whether you want to see black or whether you want to see red next. Peace.
Maybe if I'd raised you, I could have made you better. And not some weak, sniveling pussy starved for attention. But there's no fixing that now. Weak? You. I know. You're a fucking disappointment.